Hey, welcome to Web3 Weekly with your host, Blockstar Technology.
Let's go.
All right. Hi, everyone. So, Twitter Nation, Insta Nation, I think we can call it like the social nation now because we are in like 7 different platforms. So, thank you for everyone who's going to join us today. We have our special guest here today, Zinx. Quite a few people know him with his amazing 3D artwork, what he's doing, and he has an awesome project. So what we have is Zinx is a local Gold Coaster, and we invited Zinx. Given what's going on at the moment in Zinx project, we are so happy to have you, mate, because I know you got quite a lot going on, and you gave this time for us. Yeah, let's get into it. So, Zinx, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, a bit of an intro, please?
Guys, thanks for having me on. Yeah, so I'm into obviously 3D design at the moment, but it wasn't what I've always done. So my history, I guess, in arts has been, I was a tattooist for about 10 to 12 years. Grew up in New Zealand, tattooed in Christchurch, and after the earthquakes, we moved to Auckland. I tattooed there as well, and then eventually moved to Australia to do the same thing. Artwork was my passion, but I wanted to build something that was a bit more international. So like through this space, I guess I've been able to do that and just reach other people that are interested in the same things as me. Most people know me in this space for someone that's done painted shoes. So I was doing NFTs on shoes for quite a few months, I think maybe like a year and a half ago. And that's kind of how I started here.
Awesome. Yeah. So, mate, how did you sort of? You were like you said, like you were into tattooing first,
Yeah.
right? And we've seen quite a few actually tattoo artists like crossing into the Web3. Given that artistic background, quite a few people, especially in the US, seeing them come across to the Web3 space. What do you think? What do you think that is?
Personally, for me, like one of the main reasons I stopped was because of tennis elbow. So a lot of tattoo artists get problems with their joints and their backs from overworking. So I think it's just one of those things, like you can be a tattooist for 20 years, but then what? You know, like how do you pass on your art or your skill down to your children or to the next generation of people? How do you leave your art behind? It's definitely an honor to have our art on people, but it doesn't last forever. There'll be a point where none of your art is left on this earth. So that's kind of like a thing for me where I wanted to keep things going in a way, and it never has to be about one form of art. But the problem with tattooing that I see is that you can make a living from it. So you never evolve or you never expand further from doing ink on people. And I'm the type of person as well that like I like to challenge myself. I like to expand. I want to evolve. I want to grow, you know, like in other ways. So when you do something for 12 years, not that you reach a limit, but you do get a little bit bored of it. And for me, passion is very important for whatever I do. And so, yeah, that's the main reason I stopped, is because I wanted to do something else pretty much. But it's a hard game to get out of as well. So, like, how do you quit tattooing? How do you get out when you have so many people that want your work that have half pieces? So it's taken me almost, like, before I quit, it took me maybe about a year or two of no longer accepting any more customers and just dealing with the people that I had. And I told everybody that I'm quitting, and no one believed me. And I kind of didn't believe myself as well. I didn't know why I was quitting. I was just like, I knew that my time was coming up. And then when I came across NFTs, it just spoke to me, and I was just there every day.
Yeah. How did you first come across NFTs? Sorry, Charlie.
Yeah.
Trying to go back. So I think I was interested in crypto a little bit, and it was one of my mates. He was into Bitcoin a lot, but he knew that I was an artist, and he sent me an article about NFTs. And I think the first article that I read was about Nike entering the space. And this was just before Beeple dropped his piece for 69 million. And then everybody kind of was looking into NFTs. So I entered around then. I can't remember the date exactly, but it was just this one article about Nike and how they're building there. And I can't remember, to be honest, it's been a couple of years back now, but that was the first article that I read.
Yeah. Hey, Zinks, how did you find the transition? Zinks, how did you find the transition from tattoo gun to mouse, to a computer mouse, man?
Definitely hard. Like, we already started using technology a lot in our work. So for example, like, we use iPad and we do all our designs on Photoshop or Procreate. We could then take the person's arm and then wrap it with the design so they could see what their design looked like. So we already were using technology, and I was playing around with a lot of different things. My mind's kind of like, I get bored very fast. So I'm kind of like all over the place, learning different bits and pieces. But yeah, so the shift, to be honest, the hardest shift wasn't that, it was financial. So that's been the hardest thing to get out of. And you just have to put aside money a little bit and life that you may be used to and chase your dreams, I guess, but that's definitely the hardest part for me. It wasn't the shift from the tools, it was the shift from the finances.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. So with regards to the challenges that you went through in your journey, like first of all, you started the tattooing part, and then you got into the Web3 part. I would like to sort of ask, what type of challenges did you face? Because how you got into Web3 is like super cool. I think we should tell that story over and over and over again. So hopefully by capturing this in a podcast, we can save that, leave that forever. So what I want to do, Zings, is that I want to see how, I want more people to listen to this podcast and get inspired by your story.
Okay.
So that people can see, like, oh, just because I'm a tattoo artist, I'm not an IT guy, I'm not an IT person, I'm not an IT girl, but I can still do things with the current tools and techniques. So I want you to sort of tell us a story about the challenges. First of all, when you looked at it, what challenges did you face, and what was the process you went through to overcome those and coming out from the other side, please?
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say that I'm on the other side just yet, but I think, to be honest, the challenge for me has always been the same, and it's the challenge that you guys are also facing as well in trying to solve. How do we incorporate our real life businesses and use the blockchain and not make it more complicated and costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do the same thing that we could do without it? Like, why make business more complicated? Why not just go and do your normal business? Why include NFTs? Why include the blockchain? It's hard to get into, and most people hate it because of how complicated and how expensive it is to do. If you're already operating a business and you're making whatever you're making, are you going to stop and spend a few $100,000s to now go and make it more complicated when nobody understands why? Like, you have to be kind of almost crazy in business to want to do that, So when I came into the space, my head's always been in the art game and how do you make a living off it? Because a lot of artists, like, we don't make money when we do other things. You know, tattooing is one of those things that, yeah, you can make money from, you know, but other forms of art is very hard. And it's very hard to kind of make it in that area. So, you know, how do I implement a real life business and use blockchain and NFTs? And when I came to the space, that was all I wanted to do. But I'll be honest with you, it wasn't easy, and no one had that answer for me. No one could be like, yo, don't worry, man, we'll make you a contract. We'll quickly do what you need. It was like, yo, do you have 20 grand? I was like, no. Do you have 30 grand to spend on this contract? Like, why? When I could just post it online and sell my shoes that way. Why do I need someone to buy an NFT of my shoe, then burn it, then this, then that, then all this complicated stuff when people are just doing it through normal transactions? You know, I think what's changed, I don't careful what I want to say, but I don't think things have changed much. But what I've seen is there's more people out there, I guess, like you guys, that are trying to fit those pieces together. So I wasn't able to do what I'm doing. Hang on, my computer. I wasn't able to do what I am doing now if I didn't decide to do it myself. And if there weren't companies that are now building the bridge between us being able to do so for an affordable rate. So anything that we do in this space, you know, back then cost a lot of money. Yeah, an ordinary artist that wants to sell his paintings but may want to tie his community with blockchain is like, I just want to make a token that I can use so that I can reward my artists. Like, the simple things about this technology are so expensive to use that it puts off the greatest artists. They're not here because they don't want to be here. It's too expensive, too complicated. And they, you know, I understand it because I've gone through it and it's still a struggle every day, but I'm pretty committed to that. But what I want to do is kind of like what you guys want to do, and that's to help bridge that fact, like bridge it together to make it easier for people to understand, easier for people to actually do and implement and answer the reasons why go blockchain.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, man. I know exactly what you mean there. And that brings me into another question, Zinks, is how was your journey? And I know you weren't a developer, but you've taught yourself a lot over the last few years. How was that journey, man? Was your friend that was into crypto and Bitcoin a big help to you, and then you sort of went on your own journey, or how was that experience of learning to code?
Okay, let's see what I can say online. No, I was just gonna say, because I hate code. I hated coding when I looked at it. Every time I looked at coding, I was like, nah, it's not for me. Like, I've looked at coding maybe like, you know, before this space kind of came about, and I was like, nah, I can't do it. Like, there's just something about coding that I find extremely frustrating, extremely challenging. I've never hated and like, I'm not a quitter. I'll stick to anything, but I have quit coding so many times in the last 6 months. I'm like, nah, quit, don't do it. And then picked it up the next day and then cracked it. And then that is the greatest feeling for me. So I'm a bit of a sucker for punishment as well. So now I love it because of how much I hate it. And when I break through that barrier, I'm like, yo, you know, it'll take 7 days to do something I can now do in 7 minutes. But until you do it the first time, it's frustrating all the way through to be able to like understand this game. And maybe it's just me because I don't have a coding background. I'd say someone that knew how to code websites would be, you know, he'd better pick this up quite easily. But yeah, my mate that introduced me to blockchain, we don't live in the same cities anymore. So he was kind of out of the loop, I guess, for me. The biggest help for me was Third Web, and you probably see me talk about them a little bit, but they put it in a way alongside videos and also a Discord that I can be like, hey, how do I do this? What's this? And they will give you the instructions and you can kind of follow it. It's still very hard. Like, it's not easy to do any of these things at the moment. But they were able to help me. And if they weren't able to help me, ChatGPT was able to help me on the side, you know? So knowing you might have to ask the question maybe 10, 15 times, but eventually you may get an answer. And then, yeah, that's kind of where I'm up to at the moment. Like, I'd say there's a lot I want to learn, but I'm also hoping that I can get to a point where I can work with somebody that can kind of help me just take care of some of the things that I don't want to learn.
So what is the vision for your project? Like, where do you see it going? What would you love to see it turn into?
Okay. I do have a very long vision for my business. Like, this is what I'd say my last chapter. So this is the last part of my brand. So I evolved from whatever I was doing before tattooing to tattooing, and now I want to evolve into fashion, digital fashion, which I feel is what tattooing is. And that doesn't rule out digital tattoos either, by the way. But I want to evolve into creating a brand, but also an ecosystem that helps other artists and other creators. Like, a lot of people want to partner up with big brands. I want to partner with creators that I look up to, or creators that I see that were in the same situation as me. You have the talent, you got the passion, but no one's there to kind of piece you together and be like, hey man, it's not actually that hard. All you got to do is this. Like, if I had someone behind me guiding me through these contracts, I would be a lot faster than the way I've had to do it, even with Third Web. Like, Third Web's been great, but like, I still don't have someone that's like, yeah, but yo man, like, this is how you do this. And if we can kind of provide that for people, then I feel they can focus more on their passions and then kind of understand how to use all those other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's what I think the power of Web3 brings as well, is people are always willing to help. Like, there's always someone out there online, whatever time of the night, that can give you that helping hand of something that is new or foreign to you as well. And yeah, I know what you mean, man. It's one of those 7-day jobs,
Oh, yeah.
7-day jobs. I self-taught myself as well in this industry, and that one piece of terminology that I needed, that one word that I needed to put into Google to give me the answer, took me forever. It took me forever. I'm like, if I just knew that terminology, I would have been here in a day. And
I mean, that's the beauty of it. I guess, like, remember when, like, the whole thing when we started. I mean, like, Ray, we used a while ago. We used a platform called Morales. When you go, because to speed up the process, it's like a middleware. And I mean, they had support. Like, for us, they were in the middle of the night, and that's the beauty of this space, is that you can jump in and then ask a question. And there are the forums and all that. And given it's still such a new industry, technology, there's enough people at the moment to share ideas and share what they found so far, that help the other people who are coming into that industry, to help them out. So I mean, Third Web is such an awesome tool, an awesome resource. I see more and more projects using Third Web. And and then, you know what, Third Web is so good when it comes to almost testing your MVPs, your prototyping.
And what is Third Web?
Third Web is, think of like a platform that you can create your NFT projects. You have your burn contracts, you got your minting contracts, you got your staking contracts, you got all that built in. So pretty much, and then not just a platform, just like as Zinc said, it's they deliver that content so that people can understand how to use those resources. It's all good having a platform, but if you're not explaining it well, no one can use it.
Yes, so we see a lot of people using Manifold in the space, and I think they're doing great as well. Like, in the beginning, a lot of collections of people were using OpenSea, but we now learned along the way that it's a shared contract front. Like, you can't use it, you can't access the information that you need about your community, your holders, and all those things. And we never knew that in the beginning. Manifold now gives you the option to create your own contracts. You can drop and drag pretty much, and you have what you want. Third Web takes it up a notch a little bit, where you can be an aspiring dev and still have the bits and pieces that you need. Most of the things that I've done, I've had to customize their foundation that they put in. So you still have to learn how to code. You can still go in the back end and be like, I want to change all this. But I think Manifolds are really good for the artists that don't want to do any of that. But Third Web is a good step up from that. And if you want to kind of put in your own logic, I feel like that was kind of what I wanted to do.
I mean,
you've come a long way since we first went on to Third Web as well.
Today I received an email from Third Web with their new updates as well, and that's cool. I mean, like, you brought up Manifold. Manifold just having one different contract. Now we got multiple different contracts, where I think one of the guys did. I think especially the open editions is getting quite big on Manifold, and we're giving access to that. The artists to go and do their open editions on this platform and share. And I think it gives that access directly to the artist now, rather than having, just like you said, 20 grand for a contract, for a minting contract, all that stuff.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm not going to put down, I guess, what devs do, because the work is very complicated and there's many different levels that you can have. Like if you're going to run a collection that wants to raise millions of dollars, then you need to do the type of audits and the type of logic and the security and the things that you need. There definitely is different levels to the game depending where you want, like the kind of demand you're going to have. Like if you're going to do a drop that's going to raise millions of dollars, then you're probably going to have people try to hack, trying to bot it, trying to do a lot of things that you need a good dev on. So when I speak, I'm speaking from a level of an artist that is aspiring to do, I guess, smaller scale things, like what a lot of people are trying to get into. I also feel I didn't answer your question when you asked me what's my vision for my business, because that's only a small side of thing. And then we kind of, went off on that, but we can talk about that more as well. Just feel like it's a big answer, like it's a big question, and was just part of the answer. But
yeah. So it sounds like you know a lot about coding and a lot about NFTs and what's involved. Well,
because you're scaring things now.
I feel as though you know a lot more than the
compared to
person.
Yes.
Okay,
So you went from tattooing into being a very knowledgeable person in this space. But how did you learn? Like, what resources did you like for anyone else that would love to aspire to be like you and just take the steps in the right direction of learning? Like, where did you go? How did you learn? What did you do?
I learned how I think some of the most knowledgeable people in the space, I follow what they did, and they just did it. Like you have to have been there in the NFT space and seen all the trends. You have to have minted. You need to be rugged. You need to, you need to be in the game to know how it works. Like you can learn this on you're not going to learn this on YouTube. You're not going to learn this on Instagram. Like all the information you get on Instagram is all processed by the time you get there. You need someone that's on the ground, that's in amongst it all, that's done the Discord grinds for whitelists and was there when they did what was it, like the floors that started, floors. Like I've been through all the trends and all the story, because a lot about this NFT space isn't actually technical. Like you can have the best devs, the best coders, the best everything, but what's the story of your business, or what's the psychology behind your, I don't know if that's the right word, behind your collection? Like this whole game isn't just about how great your contracts are, how well your website is. Like what value are you bringing back to people? How is this going to change the ecosystem? How is this going to change business in the future? And I think that's the deeper level of that's the topic that I guess a lot of the guys have been in the space for a long time are kind of trying to figure out, because the longevity of the space kind of depends on what we build in the next few years.
Couldn't agree more, man. It's it's different from living through it to looking at what's out now. For instance, like you see a lot living through it rather than coming in and you don't know what you don't know or what you've missed out on.
Yeah. There's definitely trends that are pushed here where the language is one way, but if you've been here long enough, you know that that's old language, and I notice it between countries. So like I didn't know there was even a scene in Australia for a little bit, but let's say someone comes into the space now, the questions he's going to ask me is, why is your supply like that? What's the floor price? When is the price going to go up? Like all the same boring questions we've always been through. Like I went through it myself, where my thinking was, but bro, if you buy this NFT and if you hodl it, you're going to get a female one, and then the female one and the male one are going to breed together, and then you're going to have babies, and then you're going to make a house, and then it's all this stuff that you kind of get caught into the story, which is important. The story is important, don't get me wrong, but kind of like you lose track of like, what are we actually trying to do here? We're trying to build businesses. People don't even think about that anymore. They're like, I just want to flip. I want to be in and out. I'm like, how is that going to be sustainable in the future? So we've had these conversations, with friends and people, and there's a lot of disagreement about the space. Like you got to be careful what you say. You don't hurt someone's bags. Don't talk about zero royalties. Don't talk about this. Like it's very touchy because money's involved. But there's different language here, and it just depends on, I guess, how long you've been here as to the level of thinking. Like even my project, I guess it's mostly free, and I still get the same questions, and it can be quite hard, I guess, for founders to kind of deal with the same things over and over again when they're trying to build something different. So yeah, that's
And what helps you deal with these questions, like, you know, the repeated questions? What do you do? What helps you level up and keep sane?
I try to write Medium articles, but I don't think anybody reads them. But I just, I try to put out some warnings. I try to say, like, what I'm building is not your ordinary collection. I'm going at a different theory. The way I dropped my collection was in a way to avoid these types of questions. So I dropped on Polygon. Being in the space, I know that no one wants NFTs on Polygon just yet. I have a different vision for Polygon, but I was like, well, if I go to Polygon early, these traders aren't going to come here and ask me the same questions. If I make a collection that is much larger than the ordinary one, even though I have a reason for that later that will come about, like I was trying to do all the things to keep those old questions away, first of all. So I think that was the best way to do it. And then I've hardly raised any money doing what I'm doing, first off. So I was hoping to cut those questions out as well. Like, oh, bro, I've spent $2,000 on your NFT project. What are you doing? Why is it the fault? I don't have those questions, because at the end of the day, the only person that should be refunded is me, because I'm the one who gave them the tokens to mint. You know what I mean? So if I have had any issues, I'm like, you can just refund me if they're that bad, But most of the time, I'll take the time to talk to anybody, to answer all questions. And to be in this space, you have to have tough skin. There's just no way. There's no two ways about it. You have to be tough. You have to have a strong mind. And you just have to be able to cope with it. Like, I know guys that have been in the space that aren't here anymore, and they'll be back, but their mental well-being is not great. The loss of money, the big amounts of money, the pressure from managing money in the space. I wanted to remove those things in the beginning, so I could implement what I feel is a different system for the way I want to do my collection. I've removed money from it to remove the stress and me having to kind of answer anybody, any kind of questions. Right now, most people have had a free token. They've minted. If our floor is $2, we're 200% up. If our floor is $5, we're 500% up. It doesn't matter. It's only up from zero. So I was hoping to cut that out with that, but you still get a few odd characters in the space.
I think that's a good segue to talk about your project, Z. So can you give us a little bit about an intro about your project, and then we can dive a little bit, deeper into the layers.
Yeah, I definitely feel there's a few layers that we don't have to talk about them all right now, just because I'm thinking years, like everything that I'm implementing now, I feel like I've thought about 6 to 8 months ago. And the things that I'm implementing now are because I'm learning the things I'm needing to do, I guess, along the way. What was your question again?
So my question is like a little bit of an intro about what you're building, like an overarching project, and then what are the stages that you got to so far? Because I know like the last 24 hours and this 24 hours is a big day for you. So I want to, if you can walk us through what it is why is it important? Why today is important? So if you can work your way to this, that will be awesome.
Okay. So I'll try to explain.
By the way, we have your website here behind the screen as well. So
yeah, I mean, don't worry about the website too much right now. Like I need to work on it. Okay, so for me as an artist, the reason that I'm on the blockchain is to leave behind a story. The things that we like about the blockchain, and for some people it's different, but the things I like about the blockchain and why I needed to drop a collection starting in 2022 is because I want to leave behind a story that I can come back to later in the future. Like everything that we're doing now as artists are on chain, and that's the most authentic way, or like, what's the word? It's the way to verify what we've done. It's a story that we're leaving behind. And as artists, we tell stories by what we do. And leaving it on chain, I feel, is just a way to kind of immortalize it in something that gives us the greatest amount of authentication that we can have these days, So there may be something later in the future, but for now, 10 years from now, I better come back and check out my NFTs that are dated to 2022. So that was the pressure for me to kind of drop something in that time. Yeah, so that was that.
And then your next stage before we go to the next one,
Yeah.
Nathan, what the description says,
Yeah.
let's talk about NFT royalties.
Yeah, I
think
seen
that's
that.
but yeah, we're not
Yeah.
going to talk about. We're going to talk about Zinc's project. So I think it should be. Let's talk about Zinc's project.
We can talk about NFT royalties, but I don't know if it's a good
Yeah,
topic.
I think it's
Been reading
I think
that
it's a
long
little too
time.
early, isn't it?
I thought it was a bit of an entrapment. No.
You know what?
I
was
want to state publicly, I believe in royalties, but I also want to say that the zero royalties is going to shake the market up, and whatever's going to come out of the other side is going to be businesses that are more sustainable with or without royalties. But I definitely think that royalties is an important part of NFTs.
Yeah, and we are in the same belief. There's always there's no one right answer. There's always a combination of it. And you know what? You need that for the artists. You need that royalties, and that's the beauty of the blockchain. And if it's a business, okay, maybe we can bring in more value. We can have a bit of royalties. We can bring in more value add and brand IP and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think going to zero is the answer for everything.
No.
So
I think it's going to be a case like blockchain in general is very open, very decentralized. All sorts of craziness happens, and it's going to be like the Pirate Bay Spotify. There's going to be people that'll go to Pirate Bay, download music, which would be avoiding the creator royalties, and platforms opening up and supporting that to get market share and get their money and go on. But then you're also going to have that Spotify model where people are happy to go, hey, I'll just go to the Spotify model. I can listen to the music. And as Zinx has said, it's like you're still going to have that business model behind you. You're making music, for instance, for Spotify, but you're still making revenue as a musician or a business model. And I guess it's the joys of a decentralized ecosystem where there's no barriers or no app store that people have to get it marked off from. And there's beauty in it, and then there's the other side that is, But that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big topic that, like we could talk about for ages on, but we don't have to today.
Yeah. No, not today. Let's put that. I think that's the next week's topic that Nathan was a little bit. I think he's like 7 days ahead. This man works like light years, so we have to slow him down sometimes. So so let's go to the next one. So what was which stage are you at today with your project? Because I know that we in our conversations over the last few weeks or even we're talking about you had a token and there's a reason for that. There's token release, and then you design your own sneakers. How was that? What stage was that? And that. Yeah, so I just want to go through like step by step what your project leading up to today.
Yeah. So before I actually started the project, I guess a lot of what I was doing in the space, when I was creating shoes, I was trying to understand the attachment between your physical self and your digital self. And I think that's a very important factor in our business, is that we want to be a digital fashion brand, but we also want to be a physical one. It's very important that we do so, because the big word that I love and been learning in this space is interoperability. It took me a long time to pronounce it. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, but interoperability between metaverses is one. But what about interoperability of brands between the physical world and the digital one? So a walk between worlds explains that. And it's always been our slogan for a very long time, is that this brand started from a physical brand and is taking a walk between different worlds. We want to exist in both. And in the future, and a lot of you guys will agree, is that owning clothing in the physical world and in the digital world will have the same amount of value to a person, and it does already in games and like Fortnite, everything else. Like when I play COD and I like to have my outfits when I'm fighting, whatever. Like those things are important, but they're also important in the physical world. And if we don't have that attachment between both, then it kind of doesn't give us the same kind of value. So when I was doing these shoes, this is going back now. When I was doing these shoes, people wanted them for the NFT conventions, and they were going to these conventions and realizing that the main value of having a Bored Ape back then was the fact that people knew who you were online. You had the clout. People wanted to do business with you. People followed you. People knew you basically because of your PFP. That was your number plate in the space. That was the main reason why PFPs became so valuable, was because of the clout it gave you in a digital platform. It's like a blue tick. It gives you the clout that you need to do business with people, to interact. So when you go into these physical worlds, so the events, you lost it all. You couldn't carry your digital clout to your physical, with your physical self. So when they wore these shoes, people were like, oh, you're such and such. Oh, you're such and such. You got that ape. And people treat you differently. It's the same, it's the same thing if you go to a party and you meet someone, yo, what's up? Da, 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 that's such and such. Okay, cool. And then someone shows you the phone and it's like, hey, bro, this guy's got 1 million followers on his thing and he's got a blue tick and da, da. Bro, people are treating him differently. And whether you agree with that or not, whether you like that or not, that's how the world has existed before this metaverse talk. This stuff has already happened. Your digital self is not a lot more important. It is a lot more important for some people than their physical one almost. Their physical interactions are based off mostly digital interactions. Their partners they meet, their friends they meet, the businesses they meet. If your Instagram has 1 follower, people probably are going to think you're not a real person. You know what I mean? Like these things matter, and they've mattered for a very long time. So I feel like we're going into topics that have already existed, but just people haven't really talked about them as openly. So the connection between your digital self and your physical one, that's what we were trying to do with their shoes. And it worked, and people loved it, and people could connect, and people identified them straight away, who they were and the stories and everything. And that's great. And we kind of experimented with that with Decentraland, because that was the only place that I could first create my first NFT wearable. So NFT wearables for me were valuable in the fact that people were saying, what's the utility of a digital shoe as an NFT? Well, what's the utility of a real shoe? You can wear it. So what's the utility of a digital shoe? Well, if it's a wearable, you can wear it as well. So what we wanted to do, what we did, is that we actually recreated their physical shoes into digital representation. So let's say I did a CyberKong shoe or a Bored Ape shoe. I then created these for the collectors, and they didn't ask for that. It was just kind of something I wanted to do, and I made them 3D assets for that. With that came the ability to now create your own assets in Decentraland. So I made a few guys assets in Decentraland. They had to prove the ownership of the NFT, the IP, and this was a bit early, so I kind of didn't throw that idea away. I just kind of put it on hold for a little bit. But the IP, they were able to create their own collections in Decentraland. I took 50 pairs of shoes and I gave them the 4,500 pairs of shoes for themselves. They can manage that for their own community. You can go sell that for $10 each, whatever, and you get all your money back from the money you spend on your shoes plus more, and you have your own collection. So that's kind of how I wanted to how I wanted to help bridge people's identity and their IP into both worlds. And that was then. So now we're up to the point where I'm kind of trying to build and connect a community of people around the same concept, but our brand. And alongside that, we'll be using the same principles to kind of help people, I won't say build their own collections, but help people kind of build off that. And at the same time, when we start growing our physical part of our brand again and start doing NFTs on shoes, then I want to be able to go down that road of IP again and help people make, I guess, their own collections through the physical items that they purchase with us.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, mate. So what's happening
on that one?
So what's happening today at the moment in your ecosystem?
So today we have what I call the color cards. And there are quite a lot of them. It's 44,000 NFTs, which is a stupid amount, but I needed to buy myself a few months time. I didn't want to create something that minted out straight away. I believe all businesses are going to want to learn how to gamify their businesses. And I don't mean creating games. I mean the gamification of business. And I think that's a very important factor that I kind of want to experiment and learn with quite openly. And I guess those things are going to come about shortly. But the color cards pretty much are just 10 different models of shoes that I made. And we've generated them with the coder generator that I made. 44,000 shoes is actually quite a lot of shoes. And it took me a while to piece it together. What I didn't like is that during this market, the advice that I got was to make 1,000. That was the supply. Or why do 10,000 do 3,000? Why? Because of supply pressure. You want to better build something that people can trade and flip on. And I was like, well, I'm not about that. Like if I was to think about supply and value, and this may only make sense to me, I don't know. But when you talk about gold or you talk about any resources in the real world, they're based off how hard the type of work that it takes to mine these things. What's that true supply? Like we know diamonds, the true supply of diamonds is not real because they're restricted. So if I made a collection that was 3,000, but in 2 clicks I can make it 5,000, what's the true supply? Is it 3,000 or is it 5,000? Because with no effort, I can type in a different number and have 5,000. I could have 10,000. But to go from 10,000 to 40,000 for me was an effort because it's actually really hard to do. Well, I found it really hard to do anyway. I had to code a generator that one had to generate 10 different assets with each of the layers that went amongst it. And I won't get into this too much, but like I wanted something that took me a long time to make, something that I found was my maximum ability that I could call my true supply. I did not go through and pick what I liked. I just put it out there. And a lot of these shoes I haven't even seen myself. The idea was for the people that wanted to learn how to mint, that wanted to learn how to, I guess, use a token, put it in your MetaMask, and mint an NFT, how to use OpenSea and all those things. They could do so through my collection, and we're generating this NFT collection together. In the collection, I've loaded some hand-pieced items. There's like 140 hand-pieced items that have a claimable feature, which I'll explain in a couple of weeks. And then we also have a one-on-one in our collection that kind of explains this whole story, which I'm not ready to reveal yet, but that's in there somewhere. And to be honest, like I don't know where any of this stuff is, but like it's kind of cool for me to see other people generating art that I can appreciate as well. I'm like, oh, I like that color combination. Never thought of that. There are some really ugly shoes in this collection as well. And I knew that, but I wanted this collection to be true to my supply. And we will go through a different process to kind of change that. And the community itself are the ones who are going to get to choose the size of this collection, the rarity of this collection, and what happens at the end, based on a few functions that I got, learning how to do through coding and that.
Yeah, awesome. So, Z, have you got any plans for collabs with other brands, or if you can't say it, that's okay. But
of course, like
yeah,
collaborations are hard because in this space, it depends what type of collaboration you're talking about. Are you talking about whitelist for my community, or like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to make collaborations with some of these businesses because you don't actually know the longevity of their business or what they're about in the beginning. So I find it hard to collaborate, but I also find I have the collection that people might not want to collaborate with as well, because it doesn't make mathematical sense to the normal collection. Like, like I said, the supply and all those kind of things, it's not attractive. And that's kind of how I made it, but it's not attractive to want to be in my collection because it doesn't make sense according to the normal project. If I had 1,000 NFTs, different story. But because I have 45,000 NFTs, we kind of stay away, or I think people stay away from it, to be honest. But yeah, we do have some collaborations coming up, a few meetings that were meant to take place this week. I have stayed in touch with a lot of businesses and metaverse companies from the very beginning that I've appreciated. I've watched grow like huge, like Spatial, for example, OVR. And you guys already know that part of our business future is the things that we want to change is the way we shop for clothes, the way we shop for fashion, the way we do things like that. So having connection with Spatial and OVR and different metaverses, I know it's a bit early for that now, but I'm just keeping my foot in the door. I'm talking, I'm trying to see what's happening. I'm connecting with their communities. I'm trying to find out what's going on there so that when the time is right, I can build there. So those are the people that I want to partner with, but they're more companies that deal with, like Spatial, for example, they don't sell any land. They deal with metaverse experiences, immersive experiences for all creators. So they're the same thing. Ready Play Me as well. OVR does AR land, AR fit outs and things like that. So very interested in different things that I guess may not be good normal partnerships.
I mean, like once you showed us OVR, we went back in there and play around. So and that's the beauty of it. Sometimes just because we are in here in this space doesn't mean that we have all the answers. It's like I think it's so important in the early days to talk to a lot of people, share your knowledge, share your ideas, and just by doing that, I think you get to learn things that you did not know even existed.
It's a big learning process,
It's
isn't
huge,
it?
right?
And every day you're learning something new, and there's always someone that's got something to share. And this space is changing so fast, constantly.
Yeah,
it's crazy how fast the space changes.
Yeah.
And I know that other day I saw a tweet from you, Z, about Spatial. Like, oh, I just we logged in, we made a deal or something like that on Spatial. So, what was that experience?
Which one was that? Was that the auction?
I think so.
Or was that the class?
No, I think it was someone that you had a meeting, a business meeting, on inside Spatial. I think about maybe last week or so, I believe.
Okay, I don't remember the post because I've had a few recently, but it's just a fast way to meet. I use Spatial because I can throw up my screen. If someone, for example, the other week, they had a couple artists that they asked me how they can launch their own contract and make a minting DApp so they can mint their collections. They wanted to know how I'm doing what I'm doing. And, like I've been pretty busy at the moment, but I also want to practice in what I want to do later. So we held a class together pretty much with a couple other guys. I throw up my screen and they could see what I'm doing straight away. I can load 3D objects in there to show them, hey guys, this is the 3D object that I'm working on and this is how you can do this. And then you can just share. And it is an interactive experience. You can actually have a conversation and for a second you almost forget that you're not having it in real life almost. I can't meet with a lot of people overseas, but we can meet in Spatial. And sometimes I like meeting in Spatial because if I'm on the fly, I can do it on my phone or I can do it wherever. And you don't need to see my face. You can see my character. I'm dressed. I'm ready. I've had a haircut in my, in my metaverse. And I can do that. It's a very easy way to meet. That's all, and there's nothing to flip in there. There's no land. There's no nothing. So a lot of people in the PFP scene aren't necessarily interested in that. And I find there's a different type of community there. So I was very interested in the people that are interested in this new technology and not just blockchain, but metaverse and meeting with those people and finding out what they value. I'm very interested in what the metaverse people value, but I'm also very interested in what the PFP space value as well and how that's all going to tie in together one day.
Yeah. I mean, with the current market conditions, I know that we are in a bear, but we have a little bit of a, here and there, we have a little bit of, spikes and things like that. And when those spikes happen, people get excited and, with the blur as well, dropping those tokens, airdropping, and that gives a bit of a kick. And then, the whole royalties. And it's always there's some sort of drama going just because it's a bear market doesn't mean it's like so boring,
No, it's not at all. It is a bear market, but I mean, it's nothing. It's never boring. There's always something going on, some drama going on.
That's it, right? So, how did you? I just want to. The last we got about another 9 minutes, but I just want to touch base. Like we spoke about the coding part, but what we did not touch is about how did you design your, sneakers, the art. How did you go about doing that? What software did you use? What was the onboarding process was like?
So I found 3D design really hard too. Like none of these subjects I was naturally good at. Like I felt like I was really basic and it's really hard to go from being, I guess, a professional at something to now doing something that you were terrible at, but like I first approached the space and I hit up somebody. I said, yo, can you make these shoes? I need some shoes made. And they said to me, how many polygons do you want? I was like, polygons? I want shoes. How many tries is it? I was like, I didn't understand anything about it. So even if I don't want to be a 3D designer in the future, I felt like I had to know how this works so I can ask the right questions and get what I want created. But I just found myself doing it in the end. with my art background, I guess I've been an artist all my life. What I did when I was younger was I was a carver. Like I sculpted many different items, and I'm talking about, when I was a teenager, maybe like bone, stone, whatever. I was a carver, so that was my kind of thing. And then I became a welder. That's actually, I got an engineering background in welding for I don't know how many years, but like, so I've tried many programs. Blender's a good one, but I found one that helped me create freely was Nomad Sculpt on my iPad. And because I was already using my iPad and knew how to use the pen, it was easy for me to do that. And you start off pretty much with a ball, and then you use the tools to kind of sculpt what you want. So
wow.
the sculptures that I have before these images, which actually some holders have, they were sculpted on Nomad Sculpt. And I didn't want to make them the perfect finish because I also wanted to put out my raw story. So these are the sculptures that I made. They're not finished, but neither is the story. Now come the color cards that were made from the sculptures. So I used the color cards. The color cards were made from the sculptures. And then I generated those layers into the cards we have today.
Yeah.
You may have seen that obviously these things are going to evolve into a nicer finish, but right now they are just what they are, But Nomad Sculpt was very easy for me. And I don't know if it's for anybody else, but just it was easy for me to pick up because I guess maybe my background with carving, it felt more hands-on. I could move it with a pen. When you go on Blender, you have like 100 buttons and you don't know what to do, And they have sculpture on there, sculptures. I think they have the sculpture like layers on there or whatever, but the tools on there. But it wasn't easy as the iPad for me. So that's what I started with. And now I use Blender as well to finish the job pretty much.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I've been scrolling through OpenSea and going through your NFTs. You done such an awesome job, and end of the day, when you have an awesome wall of like a brick wall, and you see one brick come to the side, popping out, there is so many people pointing to that one brick. Oh, look, that brick is out, but they forget. Look at that, all the other perfect bricks that has been laid, right? So I think Z, you have done such an awesome job by yourself, and for what, there's no team behind you.
Well, I just want to quickly point in there that I feel like I do have a team now, and it's kind of cool because like I did start without one, but like since I started taking steps, even if there were in the beginning by myself, I don't know if you see my latest videos, but I feel like I have now surrounded myself with people that all want the same thing, that are all walking in the same direction. And that's all I wanted to do. Like I want to, I guess in some way, inspire others to kind of do the same thing as me, but help each other, put each other on, because at the end of the day, these larger companies are not going to put us smaller artists on. We have to, that's the idea of the blockchain, is that we need to connect with everybody else that's kind of trying to aim for the same thing. And then we can kind of build the things that we want to see instead of always what these large corporations are wanting to see.
Mm-hmm. No, you're bang on, mate. So before we finish, so if anyone want to get involved with your project, how could they get involved?
You got to pay.
Money.
We've been doing this for a while now. Like a lot of the things we're doing, we do a lot of like little competitions, little rewards. As the token, I must say, is just a utility token. It doesn't have liquidity. It never will have liquidity. The idea of it is to exchange our values around. So instead of me doing it for free, I'm just doing it for the token. So if you want something from me, then maybe you might need to like or retweet something, and then you get some tokens. That's how it kind of started. I wanted to make a game. I said, hey, if you play the game, test it out for me, let me know. You get some tokens, then you can use that to mint NFT. Right now, we're always we're always changing levels of where this token comes from. But this next 24 hours, just jump into our Discord, and there'll be many ways to kind of earn it in there, or you can find out who's giving away this token. So other people that have earned this token are now using to leverage their communities and to, I guess, get some engagement for their own pages. So if you jump onto their stuff and support their work, then you can earn the tokens for our project.
Okay. So say, for example, if there's a community, NFT community, for example, out there, and if they want to reward their community
Yep.
with the Z token, how would they go about it? Would they contact you, or how would they do it?
Yeah, at the moment, I guess the best is just that I don't have a project manager yet, but if you can contact me on Twitter or through our Discord, then we could definitely have a chat, and I'm always down to share with other people, and we just changing the way we implement it. So next week it might be, hey, jump into our event. I've got a friend here. He's doing a performance. We want to support him. We want 100 people to come in there. So if you come in there, you can earn the token. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, awesome. And one of the things actually, Charlie, in that last week or a couple of days ago, there's a gaming space, right? Like,
Yeah.
and one of the things that they asked was like, oh, how would you test your how would you go with your ideas, and what did you say?
Just do it.
And I think
Just do it.
yeah, and I'm gonna say, I'm not just thinking, I know this is what you are doing, Z. So I just want to put it out there. We are great believers in what you do and how you go about it, and love the ethos behind you, and you're a good person as well. And we see that so much you're doing great things, and yeah, we are constantly pushing you, and you're being a Gold Coaster as well. You popped a couple of times to the office, so yeah,
We're really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, no,
100%.
I'm sure we'll catch up again along the way.
Yeah, 100%. So on that note, Charlie, have you got any questions before we leave?
Just for anyone listening or listening in the future to this, what's your Twitter handle, Zinks? Just spell that one out so people can find you very easily, mate, and also your website URL, man, so we can share that about with everyone.
All right, so it's meant to be zinks.eth, but I can't use a dot on Twitter, so it's zinks_eth.
So Zinks is spelled as a Z1, isn't it?
Yeah, Z1NKX, no vowels because there's no rules here.
And what about your website, man?
That's saying just zinks.xyz at the moment, but like you have to realize as well that I'm building everything on the go, so things are going to change along the way. If you hit the Twitter, you're probably going to get the best connections through there.
Best connections, and then they can easily find your Discord in your handle.
Yeah, everything's there.
Easy done.
And cool. So anything else from you, Maureen, before we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so. I was just going to say, when are you going to start designing women's heels? But probably in the near future, I'm sure.
That's the next range.
Let me know.
Cool. Before we start, I just want to find out, Nathan, have you got any questions online for Zings?
I think most people are asleep, aren't they, in the space?
Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
They're missing out. Side of the world, anyway.
Well, they're missing out if they're sleeping. I think I had my phone here. Let me see whether we have any questions.
I can't see any questions.
Yeah, no questions. So, Z, again, thank you so much for your time. And I know you got a busy few hours ahead of you.
Yeah.
So, on that note, mate,
thank you.
We'll catch you later.
Yeah, talk to you later. See you guys on Twitter.
Thanks for stopping by, man.
See you later. And bye to everyone on all our social media platforms.
On Social Nation.
On Social Nation, exactly. And so what we are doing here is we are really giving NFT artists and anyone who's building a project, a meaningful project, a platform to come and share your your project, your ideas with everyone here. And so this is our 25th episode, and I can't see we're stopping with great people like Z, and there's so many other great people, and we're going to start bringing more and more people here. So please join us for future episodes. So on that note,
bye.
See you later, everyone. See you, Z.
Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place.
Subscribe.